What up, y'all? DCFAYGOGUY. Today we are going to be reviewing the brand new Madrox album entitled More Music You Don't Want to Hear from Someone You Barely Like. That is the last time I will refer to that album in that full title. I myself have shortened that down to More Music You Don't Want to Hear. I feel like that was a sufficient title. The extra was long-winded, absolutely. When they first announced this album, I immediately picked apart that title. I was like, I don't like it. The artwork very much made it clear that this was going to be a follow-up to the November Brain mix-up. And immediately I was like, why is this not more November Brain? Why is this not the November Brain Part 2? Picked it apart immediately. And going into it, try to find a way to think of different things that I wanted to call it. And going into this and knowing that the two albums are basically in tandem, they're more or less partners, they're companions, they're the bizarre to the bizarre, the man's myth to the mutant, the hypnotized to the mesmerized by System of a Down, for those who don't know. Those two albums, these two albums are very connected. And so looking at them in the full context of, if you're like talking about an album, you can say the November Brain and More Music You Don't Want to Hear. When I say it in my head like that, the title is way more enjoyable. But I have to drop off the from Someone You Barely Like. It just feels a little bit too much. It feels weird to say, to look at somebody and be like, oh, hey, what'd you think of that More Music You Don't Want to Hear from Someone You Barely Like? And they'd be like, well, who's that by? Madrox? Well, I like Madrox. Well, yeah, I know, but the album's called From Someone You Barely Like. But I don't barely like him. I like him. It's weird. Or to just fully say, More Music You Don't Want to Hear from Someone You Barely Like by Madrox. It's a weird title to me. And I don't know why I'm so anal about the title. Sometimes I get anal about album covers and titles. I don't know why I get like that. I'm just weird. But thankfully iTunes gives me the ability to change shit that I want, and I'm notorious for doing it. So that was one of the first things I did after the album dropped. I went in, I changed it. To me, it is just More Music You Don't Want to Hear on my phone. So jumping into this, unlike the November Brain mix-up, this is more of an album. One of the things that I do really like about this, though, is it has almost a feel where it still feels kind of like a mixtape. One of the biggest ways that I felt that they accomplished that was with the title track, This Ain't No Safe Space. That to me was kind of a way of piecing it together back to the November Brain. The November Brain starts off with the dice. It's kind of sad, it's kind of mopey, and this more or less is the same way, where Madrox is talking about this ain't a safe, it ends off with this ain't no safe space, Jamie, and he's just talking about emotions and feelings and not being able to really express them. And I feel like these two albums were kind of what that theme was trying to get into, especially when you look at a lot of the imagery, especially the album title here, where it's the Great Skull puking, everything about it is so connected. One of my big disappointments with the physical CDs, though, is the fact that these were not released, and I've made a video about it. It's like one of my first videos I made 12, 13 years ago was what could have been with Bizarre Bizarre, Man's Myth, and Mutant. And that is the fact that when System of a Down put out Hypnotize and Mesmerize, they were released on Digipack in a way that you could put them together. They literally slide together, fold up together. They have accenting artwork in the exact same way that November Brain and More Music do. You pop open both of the cases and their CDs are opposite of one another. So it's definitely something they could have done, and immediately I went why is this a missed opportunity once again? I want to be on the design team where they put out these design ideas that they have, and I'm somebody that can go in and be like, what do they call those, control groups? And I can go in there and be like, no, I don't like that. Let's do it like this, and just give feedback and input sometimes, because I have ideas in my own head of how I'd like to see things come out. And I know they're not opposed to using Digipacks because their Twisted's newest album is coming out on Digipack. So big gripes out of the way. Absolutely love this album, and honestly, going into this, I had only listened to the November Brain twice, and when I went into listening to that, I left it kind of meh. listening to this, immediately fell in love, and then was able to go back and listen to the November Brain and enjoy it a lot more. And I fully feel like these two albums are something that are going to be enjoyed more together, but I definitely think More Music You Don't Want to Hear is something you can enjoy definitely by itself. I mean, they both can be enjoyed by themselves, but I've found myself really enjoying listening to them both back to back. Both of them put together, you're clocking in at just a little over an hour worth of music. More Music You Don't Want to Hear comes in at 30 minutes. November Brain at 36 minutes. So it's, I mean, if you've got somewhere that you're going to drive to, you can easily, if it's going to take you an hour to get there, you can easily listen to both of them and make it feel like a full album. So I really do like this album quite a bit. The artwork I like everything that pieces back to the November Brain. Like I said, this ain't no safe space. It references the Gray Bow and the Great Skull, so you get the character that was introduced on the artwork, and I believe a little bit as well in the music of the November Brain. So definitely a tandem piece of music. Both of these definitely are companions for sure. So let's jump in and talk about my favorite tracks. I'm going to give you my top 5, starting off with Man on the Edge.
I'm out of my mind, I'm a man on the edge, don't give me no reason. Dire straits, broken faith, a lot of hate, man, the world gone crazy.
I absolutely love this track. This was, in my opinion, the start of it. There was an intro. Again, this ain't no safe space. Started at it's 36 seconds long. It ends kind of abruptly and jumps into Man on the Edge, which I think is what made me feel the connection to the November Brain, because this intro felt like it was going to go somewhere with a full proper beat, and I thought it was going to be a full track. It ends off, you end up on Man on the Edge, and just the fucking energy that Madrox brings here. And I talked about it in my November Brain review, if you have not watched that. Madrox here feels very hungry. You know, a lot of people talk about artists when they first start, they're hungry. Like, they're writing, they're motivated to write, and a lot of the shit that they write comes out really fucking dope. I feel a lot of that energy from Madrox here, and I don't know if I'm alone in that sentiment or not, but I feel like that throughout this album. And Man on the Edge, again, just starts it off great with that. One of my other top tracks, and this was tough. Going into this, it was tough coming and narrowing it down to just 5, because I like a lot of the tracks on here. I can listen to it front to back. There's not any songs that I've found myself skipping yet, except maybe Fairy Tale. There's a few times that I've skipped it, just a couple. I feel like it really kind of slows down the album. Maybe that track should have been closer towards the end. The album does end kind of with an emo sounding track, I guess you could say. So I feel like maybe Fairy Tale should have been closer to the end. But my second track that I really like is Sunny Always Forever.
Never let go when the grip get weak and stay on top before the 6 feet deep. Everybody's like, I don't want to know what it's like being you. I got enough problems being myself. What should I get lost? I'm emotionally hold about reality and all that I might need help.
And I went with this one ultimately because of the guitar riffs in this, because of the scratching in this. This gave me like a new metal, like a Linkin Park type of feel to it, with the way that he's rapping over the rock beats, the rock riffs, guitars and shit like that. But we were also getting fucking scratching in the background. I was like, yo, this is kind of dope. And to be completely honest, going into the new Twisted album, Welcome to Your Funeral, which is dropping very, very soon, it's kind of got me holding a certain expectation now for that album. Like, I hope to hear a lot of that same energy that Madrox had with Sunny Always Forever. I also found myself at certain points of it feeling like a nostalgic callback to a couple of like Dragon Ball Z tracks or songs, background music that they would play in some of the episodes, primarily around the Cell Saga. You know, you have certain tracks that I feel have a similar kind of like vibe to them. So that was definitely something for me that stood out and made me feel like, it very much itched my brain for me on that one. One of my other top 5 tracks is Rotate.
I know I've been changing and switching and changing the lanes. I'm investing time and money. Hopefully I see some gains. Never out of charisma. completely out of my brains. I'm in love with it, so I cannot complain.
I really like this. I really like the energy of this. It just feels good. It's another one of those ones where I say that I feel like Madrox just feels hungry. He feels not so much hungry on this one, but definitely like I feel like he's having fun. Like this doesn't feel like a chore for like it doesn't feel like he's having a chore with making this track. It feels to me like he's having fun with writing this and performing this. My other top 5 track is Until I Become Dirt. This song goes hard as fuck. This is definitely a song when I talk about Madrox feels hungry. This is it, baby. He feels hungry in this. He feels angry. He feels just fuck it all. And so, of course, we got to talk about the second verse. It like immediately was spreading around the internet and people were like, is he dissing Violent J? A lot of people think he's dissing Violent J. I've seen one person think that it was aimed more so at Ouija. And my thoughts about it is exactly this. Like, it's no secret that there's a feud between the two. Violent J has made disses towards Twisted. Monoxide at times has said things in his live stream. Throughout the years, they have both made mentions of it in their music. As far as Twisted goes, that's just where we are at this point in time. So for him to make a reference to what I have to assume is definitely Violent J or somebody psychopathic affiliated, it just doesn't bother me anymore. I just where we're at. They're going to diss each other. And to be completely, frankly honest with you, if it means we get dope tracks like this, bring it. I've said this in other videos before, in other reviews before, like with Psychopathic Riders. I feel like Psychopathic Riders is an awesome vessel for them to use to take shots or make diss tracks. That's just where I'm at. I don't even care anymore. Like, honestly, I'm like a lot of people. I want them to patch things up, but I can also just accept the fact that it's most likely never going to happen. I think I have a higher chance of winning $1 million than them patching things up. So I don't really care that they diss each other. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't make me angry at anybody. It doesn't make me feel a certain way. It's just like, oh shit, damn, okay, they went in on it. It's the same way with Seriously Hilarious, the same way with Psychopathic Soldier by Shaggy. It's just where I'm at with it. I've accepted that they don't like each other and they're going to take shots every now and again at each other. So I'm not fazed anymore. And I think for a lot of people, if you're in the middle, that's the best advice I could give you, is to just realize that they don't like each other and they probably never will. And try not to let it bother you. So my final favorite track, or top 5 track, is Don't Like Me 'Cause I'm Already.
Bury me deep and forget. Everybody say, oh.
Now, going back to titles, I'm not sure why this song was called Don't Like Me 'Cause I'm Already. They literally could have just called it Don't Like Me. There was no reason to add the little extra in there, because I saw that and I was like, don't like me because I'm already what? Like, what is this song going to imply? And going into it, I was like, I really like this. I really like the hook. I really like the sound. And to be completely honest, the beat, and I think it was James Garcia that did the production on that track, that honestly made me think about Stranger Things. If you listen to the theme song for Stranger Things and then listen to Don't Like Me, there's some very similar like instrumentation being done there. And I'm not going to try to use the technical terms because I don't know music on that level, but there's definitely some of that, like, is it like hyphonic? Is that the name of it? See, I don't even know. I don't even know what to call it, but there's definitely some instrumentation there that makes me think of Stranger Things. It makes me think of that opening theme song for Stranger Things. And then I look at the artwork of both the November Brain and More Music You Don't Want to Hear. And it just makes me think of, what are the creatures called from the Upside Down? What are the creatures called in that? You know, the weird looking face. It kind of made me think about those. So I don't know if Stranger Things played any kind of inspiration at all in these as far as imagery goes, as far as this track goes. I don't know, but I immediately just made those connections and I'm like, oh, okay, I dig it. I like it. But Don't Like Me Because I'm Already is definitely like a sadder song, more like a mopey, down kind of feeling down kind of song, blues song. And I really like it a lot. I just enjoy it quite a bit, great sounding. Absolutely. So those are my top 5 tracks. I don't think that I said what my favorite was. And going into this, before, I firmly was going to say Rotate. Rotate is definitely one that has stood out to me. And then I switched and I was like, oh, maybe I like Don't Like Me. And most of that was just the firm basis on earworms. Like, they've been getting stuck in my head. And then at another point, it was like, well, I also like Free Fall quite a bit, which didn't even make it in my top 5. It's up there, though. That was very close to being in my top 5 until Sunny Always Forever. And that's another earworm as well. There's quite a few earworms on both this and November Brain. But I ultimately had to give my favorite track to Until I Become Dirt, just because of how hard Madrox went on that track. And just how kind of like angry and like prideful he sounded. And honestly, that track made me like want to see or hear him do shit with some of the guys from Mission Infect. Low Key, Mad Max, Gruesome. They a lot of times will have that kind of similar vibe of kind of tracks. And it just made me like want that. And I don't think that that's ever going to happen in the future, but never say never. The 20-year anniversary of Independence Day is coming up. I don't think they'll ever do a second Independence Day, but if they did, my hope is that they would extend the olive branch to some folks from Mission Infect, because like, to me, I don't know, Until I Become Dirt just really felt like something I could hear Gruesome get on there and just slay it. It's something that I could hear Mad Max get on there and absolutely slay that beat. So it's just something out there in an alternate universe that I think would be really dope to hear. And if there's any people out there that like know how to do remixes and can like isolate vocals and isolate instrumentals, hey, a remix of that would be pretty dope. Keep the beat the same, just take a verse that Mad Max or Gruesome has put out on another track and slap it over top. I'd be curious to hear what that sounds like. Like a nice little mashup, I think would be pretty fucking sweet. But yeah, more music you don't want to hear by Madrox. Absolutely fucking love it. It's definitely been on some very steady rotation since it dropped on January 31st. If you have listened to the album, tell me down below what you guys like about it. If you haven't, go check it out, then you can come back. And if you didn't care for the album, tell me down below what you didn't like about the album. Just remember to be respectful. I thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys next time.